It was really pretty temperate most of the year round. During the winter, it would get, in the San Fernando Valley and Santa Clarita Valley, it would get a little bit chillier, and it would rain a lot. So especially being on bike, it was a challenge, but everybody's so generous, especially Latinos in the area are so generous. And they're like, oh, how can I help you? Do you need to come inside? Do you need to dry off? And during the summer, it'll get really, really hot. And everybody's trying to give you water bottles. So oftentimes when we would be knocking doors, even if they didn't want to talk to us at all since we were missionaries, we would say, well, could we come in and get a glass of water? And they'd be like, oh, well, yeah, that's fine. And then they'd let us in, and then we could start up a conversation and eventually get to talking about the gospel. So that was kind of a fun little sneaky way in. But the weather really is really beautiful. I always had this kind of prejudice against California because all the Californians that I had ever met were always like, oh, it's the best weather in the whole world. It's so perfect. And I was always like, yeah, whatever. But it's pretty great. I was up in the desert in Palmdale and Lancaster I was in Palmdale for the summer, and that was crazy hot. It was almost a little dangerous to go outside. And then I was in Lancaster for the winter time. So this is in the Bakersfield Mission now. And it's really super windy in Lancaster during the winter. I didn't really experience any earthquakes. There were a few tremors now and then, but I barely noticed them. But up in the desert in Palmdale and Lancaster, I think there's an Air Force base up there. And so something that we would encounter often were sonic booms, because they would be going by. And the first time that I heard it, my companion and I were studying, and it was so nice and quiet in our apartment. And then we heard an airplane, and we didn't really think very much about it. But then it started getting louder and louder and louder and louder. And we were sitting right next to this big glass window, and I was like, should we take cover? And so we both dove underneath the table, and we were like screaming, covering our ears. But then it just passed by. But it was the scariest thing I had ever experienced, because I thought that maybe we were experiencing nuclear war. I don't know what. But I got used to it after a while.